Great. So Avinash Munnangi is joining us today. He is a senior business intelligence developer at Optum, as well as being a two-time Viz of the Day winner and a co-lead on Tableau Buddy Talks. So for anyone who isn't familiar with Optum, it's one of the world's largest healthcare providers, serving a very impressive 127 million individual consumers, as well as all their clinics and physicians. And they're on a mission to make healthcare work better for everyone, which naturally data and analytics play a key role in. So today, Avinash will take us through Tableau's Ask Data for self-service analytics, which we're very looking forward to hearing. So Avinash, if you're ready, take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kriebel. So thanks for having me here. So let me share my screen. Can you all see it?
Yeah, that looks good now.
Okay. So let me go on full screen mode. Sorry. Okay. So hi everyone, thanks for joining in. So myself Avinash, I'll be presenting Tableau's Ask Data for self-service analytics. So we have been I have been recently started looking into Tableau's Ask Data and how it could help our customers because they're very much interested to see how they could do the ad hoc reports by themselves instead of reaching out to different people. So I'm here to share my experiences, that what I have been worked so far, and I'll present one use case on that. So again, myself, Avinash, as Kate mentioned, so I've been working as a senior business intelligence developer and part of Optum Ireland. And again, I have 10 plus years of experience in BI and data management, and I really like Tableau. I started working with Tableau when I was back in India with Optum, where I got an opportunity to work with POC. So from there, after I keep on doing. So I would like to thank Andy as well, as so I learned so many things from him through Makeover Monday and as well as through his blog. So you can see most of my Tableau public works earlier, which includes on different community challenges. So these two are the reviews of the day awards I received so far. One was on the Indian election, another one is on the cricket. So who is familiar with that? So today I have quite a bit of agenda on self-service and also the Tableau's Ask Data, how it would work. So initially we will start with what self-service and what are the benefits and the role of Ask Data within the self-service BI. So because the Ask Data would use a natural language or some AI technology in behind the scenes, and how quickly it can pull the insights in form of visuals. So I could touch base on that. And how can we use it? So there are some prerequisites and limitations for Ask Data as well. So I'll touch base on that one as well. So there's a sub-concept called lenses within the Ask Data. So I can show how we could create the lens and what's the purpose of it. And then I can touch base on the data Ask Data functionality, such functionality like if you're trying to search something, then what you can see, followed up with a demo. Sorry, there's a spelling mistake over there. And how can we enrich the Ask Data with the help of the business users? Obviously, the data that we use in day to day. So business users have most of the knowledge. So we could definitely enrich and get to know the business acronyms. So that would really help to improve the functionality of the Ask Data. And finally, with some tips of the successful queries using Ask Data. So first of all, what self-service is, instead of self-service BI, what is self-service is something which you can do by your own. So again, when it comes to self-service BI, it's a kind of a business intelligence in which the line of business professionals can enable, empowered, and encouraged to perform the queries by their own and generate the reports with the minimal IT support. So again, coming to the benefits, there are some good benefits which I've been searching. So how it could be different than the traditional BI, or how can it save the time as well? So first of all, while implementing the Ask Data or any kind of a self-service BI, we must work thoroughly on the data source first. Because that's the most important thing, and also that data source includes all the metrics that are relevant to the business, and also which would provide the business insights for the business users when they're trying to access it. So with this, so we can create a sophisticated data model. So it could be a Snowflake or star schema, so or maybe so which includes all the components that would require for the business. And so that's one kind of a benefit. If you have a good data model, then definitely you can put Ask Data on top of that, or maybe some other tool on top of that, which can do the self-service things. And the next thing is the better use of the BI. So nowadays, like if I want to create any report, it could be an ad hoc or maybe a general dashboard. So we need to interact with the stakeholders, take the requirements and put it into the documentation and create some user stories and pull the data and start working on it. So it's a little bit time consuming, and also I don't want to put the entire dashboard process aside, because this is something which can be useful for the business users when they want to do some ad hoc analysis instead of reaching out to the developers so that they can do their own. And again, definitely that's a faster decision making. So the analysis and the decisions they can make quickly. So when we have the sophisticated data source in the background, so they can start asking the questions and take the decisions. And also when they have when the business users are empowered, definitely that would increase the flexibility as well. So they can search whatever they require by their own and get the insights. And also it could reduce the dependencies. So maybe if I can take an ad hoc report, so if I don't have this kind of a facilities, and then I need to reach out to someone, explain the requirement, and again get the data, or sorry, get the dashboard or chart from them. So I may need to wait for some time. So instead of that, we can do by our own, and that would definitely reduce some of the dependencies. And the role of the Ask Data. So Ask Data is one of the feature which was introduced by Tableau in maybe 2019. Sorry, I didn't remember correctly. So, but from then it's keep on evolving. So there are a lot of new things they keep on adding to this Ask Data capability. So this is just a this is just an image of the Ask Data, like someone is typing the questions. Maybe I can just quickly switch my screen back here. So if you can see here, so in this image, someone is typing something. So, and see, you can see how quickly it is giving the suggestions. So that's called a guided analysis. And if someone type something and hit on enter, then that's going to bring up the response in form of a visual. So, and in terms of visuals, Tableau can choose an automatic visuals based on whatever you have included within your search. So that's how it would work. So, and again, going back to the presentation here. So I tried to put the PNG image, but somehow it was not working in the slide. So next, we have here how to use the Ask Data. So again, to use the Ask Data, so we can use it in the Tableau server level or Tableau cloud level. So formerly, the Tableau cloud is the Tableau Online. So recently it was rebranded as the Tableau Cloud. So we can use this capability at Tableau server and Tableau cloud. And there are some prerequisites and limitations while using the Ask Data. So the prerequisites is, so the Ask Data can work only on the published data source. So for someone who is not familiarized with the published data source, here's some definition which would make you understand about the published data source. And coming to the limitations, so there are few limitations where we cannot use parameters, sets, bins, and as well as the actions that we can use pretty much in the Tableau desktop. So we cannot use those things within the Tableau's Ask Data. or inside the Tableau Ask data. And the subtopic, as I mentioned in the agenda, is the lenses. So what is a lens? So lens is something which would we try to focus, because if I have a huge data source, maybe there may be a chance that let's take Superstore as an example. So Superstore has a lot of information related to sales, profit, and shipment. So let's say if somebody is working in the shipment, they may or may not interested in sales and profit, and vice versa. So in that case, I may create two different lenses, which is a subset of the actual data source. So the first lens would focus on sales and profit related information, and second lens would purely focus on the shipment related information. But I can show how we can create the lens. So it's very easy in the Tableau cloud I'm using right now. Okay, and these are the Ask Data Search component. So let's say this is some kind of interface, but again, this is a bit old. So right now the interface has been changed a bit. So here you can see whatever we included in this search that would go here on the top, and whatever we try to filter, so that would go here. And this is a search box. So it's a kind of a Google search engine. We can pretty much type something and it will try to pull the relevant information based on our search results. And in D here, so we can see, so somebody has typed the letter M, so it will try to index the data as well as the columns. So based on that index, it will quickly pull the data which contains the letter M. So you can see here, so I do have I can see the M contains in the city and in this column called ship mode, as well as there are a couple of functions which starts with M or may contain M as well. So you can see all that information. So this is the columns and this is the functions, and you can see this is the data within the state, maybe within this particular example. And now I'll switch to a Tableau Cloud or Tableau Online, so for the demo purpose. But what I would like to cover in the demo is just with one use case. Because of the time, I just kept only one use case. So again, I'm going to use the Tableau Superstore data. So as a disclaimer, I'm using for this. So it's a publicly available data set. So within the data set, I'm taking this use case. So like what's the total profit, and identify the most unprofitable states. So we do have the state level information. So I would like to identify which state has the least profit or most unprofitable state. So in other words, and again, we are going to narrow down the analysis, like within that particular state, find out the most unprofitable orders in terms of subcategory. And also we can again go deeper and take top 5 products as well, which are not performing well within that particular state and subcategory. So finally, so I'm done with this use case. So I find something which are the least performing products or the unprofitable products. So from there, whatever I find, so I would like to collaborate and share with my colleagues, or maybe someone else who is really looking into that particular state, or maybe a kind of a regional manager. So I can download the data, and or else I can share the visual to that particular regional manager, and maybe I can ask him or her like, okay, these are the least or unprofitable products. So could you please have a look and see why these are not performing well, or is there anything else that we can do to improve the sales of these products? Okay, so that's a use case I'm going to use for the demo. So again, I can go back to Tableau Online. So I just created a free trial account for demo purpose. So I'm going to data sources. So this is the sample Superstore data I have here. So now I would like to show the lens. Maybe I already created one lens, but I can create one more lens for the demo. So here, so if you remember in terms of lens, so right now I'm going to focus on the sales and profit. Maybe I could create a lens name as unprofitable, oh sorry, unprofitable product analysis. Okay, so if I want, I can provide some description here. If not, so we can leave it as it is, and we can also do that later. And I can choose which projects that I need to publish this lens. So I'll just go ahead with the samples and I can click on the publish lens. So now it's going to create a lens, which includes all the columns. But we always go back and uncheck the columns that we don't require for this analysis. Okay, so this is the lens which is already created, that unprofitable product analysis. And now what I will do is I'll just choose region, country, city, maybe, sorry, state. I require state, and I may not use the order date. Oh, sorry, I use the order date and order ID, category, subcategory, and I don't use the manufacturer, so I can ignore that. But I think it's in the hierarchy, it's selecting by default. And I don't require the shipment related information with this lens. So, and also don't require the segment, but I do require the profit, maybe discount and sales. Okay, so I just skipped a couple of columns which I don't require for my analysis. So that would narrow down the subset of the data that you created or included within the lens. So, and I can create the lens with only the selected columns that we can see here or checked here. So I can click on submit. Now you can see it just filtered out. So you can see what are the columns that I have included in the lens. So all of the columns were excluded from here. Okay, so now what I can do is just a kind of some warm-up question. So you can see here, so these are these couple of new things which were added by Tableau in the recent versions. So earlier we do not have a direct option to add a filter here or to add a field here. So, but that's something which is very useful. You can directly, instead of searching here, you can directly click here and add something here. Okay, so but for now, so what I will do is I'll just start with the simple questions like what is the sales, overall sales I have here. So maybe I can type the sales here, and if I just hit submit, so that's going to bring up the overall sales. Okay, so now I would like to see I would like to change this to an average, because I don't want to see it as a sum. So we can quickly change all these things within a fraction of seconds or just few clicks away. So we can all choose by clicking somewhere, as you can do in the Tableau desktop, drag and drop, but you can simply click here. Now I would like to break down this maybe by category to see the sum of sales. So you can see how quickly it can change the number into a visual. So because I have used the category and sales, maybe if I can bring up the time frame, so then that's going to create a line charts. So that's something I mentioned just before diving into the demo. Because based on whatever the elements or in terms of dimensions and measures that we included within our search, so Tableau is going to create the visuals automatically based on that. But of course, if we don't like to see it in a horizontal way, and you can change that to a vertical way, or maybe if you don't like to see this as a bar chart at all, so you do have some of the options, but like I can say fewer options available here. So you can quickly change that to a tree map as well. So, okay, so that's some kind of a simple thing that we did here. But I'm going to cover the actual use case that I presented just before. So within that use case, first of all, I would like to see what's the total profit I have. So I can simply click here. So I can click on the submit, so I can see the total profit. Now I would like to bring or break down this by a state. So you can see whenever I started searching something, so it's providing a lot of suggestions. So that's a guided analysis provided by the ask data. So we can choose whatever we require from that analysis. So if you see here closely, or if you observe here closely, and also this legend, so we do have the negative profit in couple of states. But apart from all the states which has the negative profit, Texas is the state which has the highest or most negative profit, or least unprofitable state, I can see. So sorry, most unprofitable state. So you can see now there's a Texas which has close to $25,000, which is the negative profit. Now, so within the question that I have here, so now I see I had seen the total profit and I identify the unprofitable state, which is the Texas here. Okay, now I would like to keep the same thing. So what I will do is I'll just duplicate this. And so within this, I can choose maybe one state, or I can just remove this, and I can add Texas here. Sorry, Texas here. So that's going to include only the profit related to Texas. Now I would like to see what are the subcategories which has the least profit. So sorry, most unprofit. So I can see now if I can just come down. So binders is the subcategory which has the negative profit. So then that answers another question, like what's the subcategory which has the least profit. So I can choose this further, or include this as a filter, and narrow down the analysis further. So now within this subcategory, I would like to see what are all the products has again a least profit. So that's another level of uh, uh, or another question that I have in my mind. So I'd like to understand that. Okay, so now what I can do here is within the same search. So I can either do the same thing here by including this, or else I can duplicate this. But for now, so I would like to include the same subcategory here. So what I will do is I'll just type the binders. Okay, that gets added to the filter. And I would like to remove from here because I can see that from the binders. So now, oh, sorry. I don't want to include this. I want to include the subcategory because binder is available in the product name as well as the subcategory. So I would like to include this. Okay, so this is the profit that we have for the binder subcategory. Now I can just bring down or narrow down further to see the product names. So then we can try to understand maybe like all the products which has the negative profit. So you can see these products have huge negative profit. So maybe this is something I would like to select. Let me change the order. So now I can see it in a better way. So now these are the orders which are not performing well within that particular state. And you could see the profit as well. So then this requires the further analysis. So what I can do is I would like to select all the 5 products, and I can just simply click on the view data. So this is again similar to what we do on day-to-day basis in the Tableau desktop. So we can click on the view data. So I'm sorry. We can click on the view data. I can just maximize the screen. So again, this is some kind of a new option. Earlier, the view data pane would look different. So, but it's different right now because there was a change, or there is a recent version of the Tableau, maybe 2022.2 version. So they have added this functionality. So earlier we do not have any option, I think, to move the positions of this column, but I can show that what I'm talking. So now I would like to share this data with maybe a regional manager to look down into this particular subcategory, and for these products, why they are not performing well, and is there anything that we could do further to improve the sales of that. So for that, while I'm sharing these details, I'm not going to send it directly because I would like to include few other information, so few other columns as well. So one is a subcategory. So you can see whenever I'm selecting, it's getting added here, maybe a city, and maybe a discount could be an interesting thing. So you can see we had given lot of discount on these adders. So that could be something we can minimize. Maybe we can give maybe 30% of this discount instead of 80% here. So that may improve our sales as well. And also I can include sales Maybe I think I'm good for now. So what I can do is I would like to arrange these things. So this is the option which I was mentioning earlier. So which was not available before 2020 1.1 version. Sorry, 2022.1 version. So now what I can do is I can quickly rearrange the things. So I would like to move state all the way to left and maybe city as well. Oh, sorry. Then I can just put category, then subcategory, just to arrange the things in a proper way. So, and then I would like to keep the sales first, followed up with profit, and followed up with the discount. So now what I can do is I can simply click on the download option. Then that's going to download the information. So you can see that information has been downloaded into a CSV file. So now I can just copy paste the CSV file in an email or maybe an MS Teams and ask the regional manager to say, can you please have a look into these particular products which has the negative profit. So that's pretty much how we can start and doing the analysis by using an ask data within a couple of minutes. Maybe I had used like 10 minutes just for the demo. So how quickly we can change the things and download or from the highest granular level to the least granular level. So we started with the profit, followed up with the state, followed up with subcategory, followed up with product name, so on and so forth, until we downloaded the data and shared it with someone else. So now I have downloaded the data, but I don't want to download the data and share with the regional manager. Maybe instead of that, I can directly share the visual itself because they can see the visual as well. And also maybe instead of 5 products, they may be interested to see the other products as well. So for that, I can directly use a share option here. So I can type some username. Right now I'm using Tableau online trial version. I may not have the users added to it apart from me, but in your environments, you can pretty much type the username, and if you can click or select that user and click on share, or you can also copy paste the link to that particular regional manager so to have the look into this particular analysis. So that's a one way of sharing. And another way of sharing is you can always pin this as a recommended visualization. So that's something really useful. So we, instead of saving this view directly to the Tableau server, one way it's not good, like if the Explorer or Explorer have the license, sorry, if someone has Explorer license and if she or he have a permission to save the views, then that would definitely increase the space of the Tableau server because they can keep on saving everything. So just to avoid that, so this is a save option. If you want, we can save this to some of the project, including this views. So instead of that, what I can do is simply I can just pin this as a recommended visualization. Maybe I can just keep it it's as it is. But if you just go here, so you can see there are some of the recommended visualization by default, which was created by Tableau. So that gets added here. So let's say if I can just go back to this screen and I can just pin it as a recommended visualization. And if I open up another sheet, so now it has pinned here. So if I just click on this, that will include all the analysis that we did here and directly take us through that page. So now we can see the same view here and as well as here. So that's how it is, and it's very simple to pin the visualization. And if you want to keep on doing the analysis, I mean, in future as well, so you can, this is the best option that you can choose this and do that. And a few other things quickly I would like to go through. So let's say if you are the business users and if you have any question or the column that was not included here, so you can just click in this and click on the contact lens author. So you can directly write up here to let that particular lens author to know, like this particular column I'm looking within this data source and it was not available here. Could you please cross check and add that information as well? So that's one of the useful option. And another useful option here I can see is the UJ's analytics. So this is something useful for the development teams, especially let's say if you have created some of the ask data capability and you would like to know who has used that and what was the trend. So how frequently they are using and what kind of fields they are using, and as well as how many unique users or unique questions that they are asking within this ask data. So this is some kind of a Tableau administrative use that we can by default it was created by Tableau. So this is really useful. Maybe if somebody is looking for some of the fields or keep on using the field, so then we can get to know this is the information which is consumed by the business users frequently. So this is really useful. And also there are few other things as well I would like to touch base. Sorry, Kate, do I have 1 or 2 minutes of time?
Yeah, go for it, Avinash.
Okay. So, and few other things as well. So how can we enrich the ask data functionality? So let's say for an instance, so I do have these column names here. Maybe like in Superstore data, we have the proper naming conventions, but in our business, we may or may not have some naming conventions like this. So we do have something like CAT instead of category. So, but if somebody comes here and search as a CAT, then it won't bring up the anything here. So right now it's available. The cat is like CAT is available in the category column. It's bringing up. Maybe if I just type it as a CT, then it's not bringing up the category column here. So for that, what I can do is I will try to get a help from the business users to know how they can call this particular column. Some people may call it as category, some people may call it as CAT, some people may call it as CT. So what I can do is I can pretty much add synonyms. This is really useful whenever somebody is searching instead of typing category, so they can simply search CT. So earlier when I typed here, so it was not pulling the category column, but now you can see how it will understand and pull that information. And also sometimes we may have some complex calculations that we have written on the published data source or while publishing the data source, and that those were included here. And if you would like to explain them in a better way, so you can type something. This is test. Maybe I can just put it as like this. So now how it can help them is, so they can simply come here and hover over on this. So then they can see the synonyms of that particular column and description as well. So then it would be very useful for them to understand what this particular column is mean and what it is doing. Okay, so now earlier I do not have synonym called CT and it was not pulling up the category column, but now you can see I have added a synonym called CT and CAT. So with that, it's tried to understand, okay, CT refers to category and that's a synonym which I was added. So it's trying to understand and pulling that information here. So, but obviously we can get to know all of these business acronyms or the terminology from the business users. That's why I just mentioned here as how can we enrich the functionality with the help of the business users to add a synonym and to add the description. I'm not going to like reading through the description because of the time. And again, these are the some of the useful tips for the successful queries to use or to utilize in the ask data. So let's say for this example, instead of typing, I want to see all the countries that have these airports. So maybe instead of that, I can simply type like by airport and country. So that's the best way that Tableau ask data can understand and bring up the results in seconds. Or maybe again, it depends on how optimized is your data source and how well it has been structured and defined. And in similar way, there are some other keywords as well. You can see instead of best, I can use top one. Instead of worst, I can use bottom one. So just to make sure that ask data can understand whatever we are asking in a better way and try to pull up the results. So I think that's all I have today. I may be a bit quick, but I would like to take up the questions, or maybe just in case if I am unable to cover anything or unanswered the question, you can always reach out to me in LinkedIn, or maybe you can send an email to my email ID that's displayed here in the bottom. So I'm happy to have a look and get back to you. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Avinash. That was great. It's amazing how you can make that information so accessible, even at such a specific thing, such as a product, the most unprofitable product. So it's great to see that. And if you do have any questions for Avinash, you can pop them in the chat box and we can go through them at the end. And the same goes for Andy's presentation, which we are going to go into now. So just a brief introduction for Andy Kriebel, for anyone who doesn't know him. Andy is the global head coach for the Information Labs Data School. And as well as that, he has also implemented Tableau at source for some of the world's biggest companies, including Coca-Cola and Meta. So we couldn't think of anyone better here to talk to us about effective dashboard design. Andy, do you want to take it away there?
Yeah, it sounds like a bit of pressure.
No pressure whatsoever.
So just to let people know, I'm going to be using two screens. So if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat, and then I can see them, and I'll also be asking for some audience participation. So why don't we go ahead and get started? I'll share my screen. Okay. And you should now be able to see it, correct? All good? Yeah. Okay,
Looks
great.
good.
Yeah.
So I am here to talk to you today about effective dashboard design. I'm sure we all build dashboards in our regular jobs, or the companies we work in at least build them. And I'm going to talk a bit about the history of them, and then get into some examples of how they work and how they don't work. Oops, wrong screen. Okay, so why did business dashboards become popular? Hands up in the chat. You can use hand gestures. Who's heard of Enron? Does the name ring a bell at all? Okay, not very many of you. Well, maybe you can't find the gesture, but down the bottom. Okay, so the story behind Enron is they were a merger between two energy companies in the US. I believe they were located in Houston, Texas. And oh, there's somebody in the chat. And they were a very successful company, or at least appeared to be successful, but they were manipulating their finances, let's call it that. And they basically went bankrupt very, very quickly. So they went from one of the most valuable companies in the world to bankrupt, within, I believe, within like a quarter. They had 26,000 employees that just suddenly lost their jobs, lost all of their pension, all of their retirement savings. Everything was completely gone because of corrupt people running the company. And the problem was they didn't have any way to track what was going on in the company. So this is kind of what triggered the use of business dashboards kind of in general. Companies now needed to be able to they need to be able to report to shareholders, or report to their employees, or report to their bosses what was going on in the company. There were also some policies put in place by the government that required companies to publish this kind of data and be held accountable to that sort of thing. But before we do that, let's look at the purpose of data visualization. So data visualization is all about being able to see and understand your data. And what we mean by that is it has to communicate effectively, but it also has to be easy enough to understand. So a dashboard's doing its job when it communicates. It's very, very simple. A dashboard's doing well if it communicates clearly and it communicates efficiently. So clearly means easy to understand. Efficiently means it's designed well where the user can find the important information as quickly as possible. So they help us deal with the problem of information overload. We've probably all seen dashboards that have tons and tons of charts on them. Maybe they're really scrolly or something. They're way too big for the screen, whatever it is. Those are problems for us because there's too much information and we don't know what to focus on. So what are some common mistakes in dashboard design? Well, the first thing is, and you're going to see some pretty terrible images here in this presentation. These are really, really old, but I think they're still good examples. They look like they were probably created in like Windows 95 or something like that. So with this one, this is a great example of things exceeding the boundaries of a single screen. So if we look over here on the right-hand side, I'm assuming you can see my mouse, you'll see that we have this number of transactions that says it's up 59.8%. The next one's down 12.4%, et cetera. But you'll see a little scroll bar there. So you have to scroll down to get the information. Well, what if the information that's most important or that is the biggest problem is down in that scrolling? You have to scroll down to find that. Nobody's going to find that. People aren't going to take the time to scroll. You then have a big scroll bar going all the way down, so it looks like this must be a very, very, very long dashboard. But there's too much going on and we don't know what's most important. We also have tabs across the top and buttons. And so it looks like there's probably like 20 pages within this dashboard. We have no idea where to start. So what's going to happen is people just aren't going to use it because it's too complicated. Here's another example. So this one has a bunch of buttons on the left-hand side that look like maybe they're for, they're basically just different dashboards. You can think of them as almost like a portal. So maybe if you know the one you need to go to, you can just click on that particular button. However, if you need to look at multiple ones at the same time, you can't. You have to flip between them. So for example, we're looking at kind of the overview here, and we see we've got a couple of gauges, and there's just very minimal information on here. We see that, so it looks like past due loans are 1.26% of loans are past due within the last 30 days. Okay, well, so what? What does that number mean? Is that good or bad? It's in that red section, but how do we know what red is? What's our target, right? We have nothing to compare it to. It's just some kind of number. In the second gauge down, you see it says 1.47%, and that's all the way at kind of the maximum of that gauge. Well, what happens if it gets to 2% or 3% or 4%, right? We exceed the size of that gauge. So then what happens, right? So these are all very ineffective ways of communicating data. So I just mentioned a couple examples of context. So here we've got the October units sold, we have the year-to-date units and the returns rate. Okay, these are great. They give us 3 numbers, but compared to what? Whenever you're putting something into a dashboard, always ask yourself, compared to what, or why did you put that number in the dashboard in the first place? Because without that context, it's just a number. If I'm new to a company and I see we've sold 7,822 units year to date, I see a green bar, like a green, little hand there on the gauge, but that doesn't really tell me anything. So if I were to guess, I would think maybe our goal is 15,000, but I have no ideas, right? So I need to know what is our goal for the whole year? How does this compare to the same period in the previous year? Different things like that to give the numbers some context, because if I just see 7822, so what? What does that mean? So it's another example of when to ask yourself, compared to what? We'll also see people presenting excessive detail or precision. On the right-hand side, I see I've got this red box here for when the alert was activated. So it was at March 15th, 2004 at 5:10 p.m. and 8 seconds. Is it really necessary to have it at that level of precision? Down the bottom, we have, the first product. We see our yield today, or sorry, the second one down, the yield today is 89.4308934. Does anybody really care about that level of precision? What if it was just 89.4? Or what if it was just 89? Maybe that would be okay. When you include a lot of precision in your numbers, people think that means something. So if let's say you go to 3 or 4 decimals, if that's important, then great, include it. But if it's not important, don't include it. Consider rounding the numbers. So for example, if you're going to look at maybe year-to-date sales versus prior year, you don't want to put we're at minus 1.2724%. Nobody's going to understand that. They're going to think that precision means something. Well, really, you could probably just put we're down 1.3%. And that's much easier for somebody to get their head around really quickly. When you see all that precision, you kind of lose the focus on what's the purpose of that number in the first place. We also need to be careful that we're not presenting numbers inaccurately. So for example, here across the top, we have a variance analysis of current month. And I'm guessing it's versus prior month, right? So we have an area chart with a line, or maybe it's actuals versus budget, something like that. Well, I don't know which one is which. There's no color legend. They overlap a bit, what's good, what's bad. Again, we don't know. A much easier way to present that would be maybe just looking at the variance to budget. Because the title of the one above is variance analysis, why isn't that chart focusing on the variance? So get to the point. The one in the bottom, it's revenue, actual to budget variance, because again, we're concerned about that variance analysis. And we can see the budget is basically at 0, and we're looking at the percentage change, right? We're not looking at the amount of the change, because if it's 20,000 above budget, I don't really have a lot of context for what that means. But if it was 4% above budget, then I know, oh, okay, that gives you a bit more context on how large of a change that actually is. So when I present variances, I almost always present them as percentages. Inappropriate charts. So we go into a lot of detail about this in our Makeover Monday book. You'll see a lot of this on the weekly vizzes that we post for Makeover Monday. You'll see it in there's another community project called Back to Viz Basics, and you'll see the purpose of those projects is to teach people how to communicate effectively and how to make the right chart choices. So at the top we have this 3D pie chart. One of the problems with a 3D chart is when it's tilted. So for example, we could see the tilt on, we've got the kind of brownish reddish color on the bottom right, the 21.5%. If you were to just kind of calculate the amount of ink that takes up, it would actually be more than 21.5% because it's tilted. And the green one would be less than 13.4% because it's tilted and it's got less of the color. I hope that makes sense. So a much easier way to display this is just as a simple bar chart. A bar chart makes it much easier because you can compare the length of the bars versus the size of the slice of a pie. If you've looked at my visualizations, you'll see I primarily use bars and lines. And I do that because they work effectively, right? I want people to be able to compare things easily. So again, bars and lines typically are the best use case for that. Can it look boring after a while? Yes, but what's better, boring or easy to understand? I would go for easy to understand every time. When we look at applications for the data school, for example, people are required to build a visualization. And a lot of times a bar chart would be the best way to display it, but they may have already had 3 or 4 in there. And they think, well, can they all just be bar charts? Is that too boring? So they'll put maybe a lollipop chart in there or a tree map or something just so they're doing something different. But that's kind of failing though, because the whole purpose of this is to communicate effectively and choose the best chart choice for that. All right, so kind of an example of what I was speaking about. So introducing meaningless variety. I really have no idea what to make of this. So if we start across the top, we have Barbados, Canada, and the US, and they've got kind of 2 circles in there. Your guess is as good as mine as why one circle is bigger than the other, and why in the USA are they different colors. I thought perhaps Barbados was green, Barbados red, Canada green, and USA, it's USA red or yellow. If I go down to the bottom, it looks like the USA is yellow. If I go to this gauge on the left, it looks like the USA is yellow. But, why is the US both red and yellow? I don't know, right? It's very, very complicated and not very easy to understand. In this one on the left-hand side, they're using a line chart to connect to 3 countries. Well, you shouldn't use a line chart unless there's some type of natural sequence to the data, like across time, or maybe an age distribution, something like that, that has some kind of natural order to it. So these are just discrete items. There's no reason to use a line chart there, and it's an inappropriate visual. We also have tons of extra, really dark borders and unnecessary precision on the numbers on the side. Which axis goes with, is the line go with the axis on the left or the one on the right? Lots of problems with that. Down on the bottom, we have another gauge chart. And it looks like we have three like clock arms, or I don't know what they're called, needles. I think that's what they are, within all of those. Okay, so we've got one in Canada, but does the one in Canada actually go with Barbados and it's exceeded? Or is that actually just a little slice of Canada? What about the one in America? Is that actually Canada falling behind, or is it America, or is it Barbados being ahead, right? A very, very poor example of a visualization. So a gauge is typically used for measuring something against a goal, right? We've all seen them before, but why not just make that a bar chart? Like maybe a bar chart for the actuals and maybe a reference line across it for the target, something like that, something very, very easy to understand. So don't overcomplicate things unnecessarily. We talked about poorly designed charts. So, oh wow, this image is quite terrible. So sorry for the blurriness of the image. But we're looking at a 3D bar chart here. So if you look at the green one over here on the right-hand side in the budget, it's very difficult to know what value that corresponds with on the left-hand side. Does it go with the front edge of the bar? Does it go with the back edge of the bar? Does it go with the middle, right? It's a very different value depending on the one that you pick. It also, how do you compare the two red ones? So one's actual, one's budget. How do I know which one exceeds the other? I can't tell by this type of visual. Even if they were just straight bar charts, you know, without the 3D, they would be easier to understand. Okay, so yeah, so here we've got revenue, costs, and margin all within the numbers. All right, so our scale goes for starts at 500,000. Well, that's a problem right there, because bar charts should always start at 0 because you're trying to compare the length of the bar. So if we look at January, January looks like it's maybe a fifth of the size, the costs are about a fifth of the revenue. Well, that's not really the case because the scale starts at 500,000. So this is incredibly misleading to your audience. Another important aspect of designing a dashboard is to arrange things properly. In this example, how do we know what's most important? So put the most important thing on the upper left-hand side. Here, it almost feels like everything's important because nothing's highlighted as important. I'm not quite sure if that makes sense or not. But make it easy for people to know what's most important and what they should be paying attention to. In this example, we're looking at ineffectively highlighting what's important. So we've got on the left-hand side, we've got sales versus percent margin, and we have what, 1, 2, 3, how many lines are there? How many colors do we have here? I find it quite hard actually to count the number of colors we have in this first line chart here on the left-hand side. But do some of them go with the right axis and some of them go with the left? We've got some unnecessary precision. Basically, this is pretty bad overall, right? Nothing really communicates very well. Everything is kind of really bold and shouting at you as well. So when something's bold, that typically means it's more important. Well, in this case, everything's in bold. So does that mean everything's important? Probably not. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. We've already kind of talked about that. Right, so misusing or overusing color. So in this example, we have different flight routes. So LA to Seattle, LA to Salt Lake City, etc. And there's some instructions, click on the bar to load the flight map. Okay, well, why not have the flight map on there anyway, right? Why do you have to go to a separate place to do that? They're 3D bars, they're rotated, right? We've got all of these kind of issues here with this chart. Well, why not just make them regular bar charts? And why do they all need to be different colors? Yes, they're all different routes, but if we're just trying to compare the average load percentage for each of those routes, just make them a single color and compare them. Maybe have an average line on there so we know whether they're above or below their peers, something like that. This one is just unappealing, right? We've got these super dark backgrounds. Does this make anybody feel sad when they look at it? Kind of depressed? I don't know. It's kind of a downer looking at it. You know, imagine looking at this every day. How would you feel if you had to, and plus you've got these really dark numbers on a dark background. How do you even read them, right? So design something that's kind of pleasing to look at as well. Okay, so what are some characteristics of a good dashboard? So exceptional design, obviously, or sorry, exceptional organization. Data that's in the form of summaries. So that might be where you have maybe a big number that totals up your sales, but you also need to have context for that number as well. So just having a big number doesn't matter. That's kind of maybe that's one form of summary. Even so Avinash was looking at maybe sales by category, right? That's a summary as well, right? You're aggregating the data. You don't need to show the most granular level of detail. Make sure it's the right data for the task. I'd like to start with a question in my dashboard. So the title of my dashboard is a question. When I drop things into that dashboard, if they don't help me answer that question, then they're not the right data for that task. So take them out. So that's why it's good to start with the question. You can always change the title at the end to be sales dashboard, something boring like that, whatever you want to call it. But if you start with that question, it'll help you focus the things that you put on the dashboard, and it'll help you ensure that you're using the right data for that particular task. So again, if you put something on the dashboard, it doesn't help you answer that question, then get rid of it. And then make sure your charts are clear, size them appropriately depending on what you're trying to emphasize and how much room they just kind of generally need. But basically keep things simple. That's the easiest way to do it. Bars, lines, simple chart choices, nice, simple organization. Right. So what does a good dashboard consist of? It's a measure of what's currently going on. So current state compared to something. So let's say current state is 720,000 in sales compared to what? Well, it could be versus budget. It could be versus the prior year, right? Some kind of context for that comparison. Sorry, what was it? Sorry, I've got my camera in the way. Yeah, so we're comparing something in order to add that context. And we need to be able to take each of those things that we put on the dashboard and evaluate its declarative state. Is it good or bad? Is it something that needs attention or not, right? So think about everything you put on there as having some kind of like Boolean result to it. Do I need to take action? So in this example, we've got lots of pieces of context here. So on the left-hand side, we have our year-to-date revenue. So by, I believe it's by month. And we can see we have little spark lines, right? So the purpose of a spark line is to show you kind of a trend for that particular metric. So they're zoomed in because we're not really focused on what the values are themselves. We're more focused on the pattern. So we can see on-time deliveries are increasing generally. We can see customer satisfaction has increased quite a bit. Market share is decreasing, right? So again, very simple forms of summaries that help you understand what's going on. And then we have the name of the metric down the left-hand side, but you see this big red dot. So hopefully that popped right out to everybody because you see this red thing. Everything else is kind of gray, but you have this red thing to really draw your attention. That means, okay, there's a problem with profit. So that leads us then to get over here to the right-hand side. So this is called a bullet graph. And we can see the target is at 100% for, oops, what the heck happened there? The target is at 100% for each of these metrics. You've got the dark bar on the inside of that that tells you whether you exceed it, whether you're above or below that target. And then you have these gray backgrounds in the background, or sorry, you have these gray shaded areas in the background that help you know kind of how far along are you with that particular measure or that metric. So for example, we can see profit is in the dark gray. So that must be why the red circle is there, because it's in that kind of danger area. And none of the rest of them have that. And then on the right-hand side, we kind of have that big number, right? The really simple, we're at 94% on-time deliveries. Great. Perfect. But again, when you, or not again, when you're building a dashboard, a really simple thing to do is, well, Tableau defaults to blue as its default color, but I sometimes start with everything as some sort of gray, right? Everything is gray or black, and then only add color where you need to emphasize something. So you can start with the Tableau blue, but keep everything that blue until you need to emphasize something and then change the color of that particular thing. right? So when we look at a table on the left-hand side, this is kind of slow and serial. And what that means is you have to scan down till you get your revenue, scan across to get the target, right? So it's kind of slow to read tables. Picture a really big table with lots of columns across the top. It's kind of like a lookup, right? You're going down, let's find that particular product in that particular week. We're going to scroll over to the right-hand side and see how many things we ordered. So you have to kind of do this little matrix kind of thing. But on the right-hand side, we can, because it's presented as a chart, we can really quickly see which things are above or below and how far. Everything's on a scale, whereas where 100% is the target, and then you're either above or below that. So it's really, really quick. Don't use silly graphs. We've probably heard funnel analysis before. I think this is taking it to the extreme. So we talk about at work a recruiting funnel, right? You have to have your big master, maybe it's your distribution list of people, and then that funnels down to people that actually write you back, and then that funnels down to people that apply for the job, and that funnels down to the people that got interviewed, and then that goes down to the people that got hired. Whatever those metrics are, you talk about a funnel analysis, but don't make it look like a funnel. It just looks silly. You could make this a simple bar chart and it would be just as easy to understand. Actually, it'd be a heck of a lot easier to understand. Even a table of this would be easier to understand. This is a much easier way to do it. So we just turn this graph here, this silly funnel, into a simple bar chart. And I think we can probably all agree that this is much easier to understand. Consider using icons. You can use maybe different shades of a particular shape. So maybe a dark red means it's a big problem. A lighter red means it's kind of like a caution. You can use arrows, triangles, like up or down for good or bad, or maybe you just use maybe a checkbox or something, or some kind of indicator otherwise. Lots of different ways you can do it. I would say these get, as you go kind of top to bottom, they're easier to understand. So the ones at the top are the easiest to understand, and they get more complicated as you go down. Okay, we're gonna skip this one because I think are we running up on time? I think we are.
Yeah, we're a small bit tight.
Okay, so let me just go through real quickly. I'll skim through some of this. When you're designing a dashboard, think about reading it in a Z pattern, or Z for those of you that are from the UK. I don't know if other people say that as well, but a Z pattern. The most important thing should always be on the upper left because that's where your eyes go to first. The bottom right is things that you want to de-emphasize, almost like supporting information. When you're highlighting things, you want to highlight things that are always important and things that are important right now. So the static things, those are things you want to always highlight every time this dashboard's up. And then maybe the dynamic part of that is, okay, suddenly this thing is below target. We need to highlight that now. But maybe in the next month, when you refresh it, it's no longer below the target. So you stop highlighting it. So that's typically done through like formulas and things. Okay, so let me skip through some of these. Okay, and I can send a link to this dashboard, but I have just some, if you just scroll through the Tableau Public, you're going to see tons of great dashboards out there. So this one, for example, this is by Irene. Isn't it by Irene? No, it's not by Irene. But really easy to look at, very easy to understand dashboard of call center analysis, right? We've got our big numbers on the left-hand side, and you have that number for comparison. You've got a simple line chart so you can see the pattern. And then they're all consistent. Even though they're different metrics, they're all designed consistently. You have the number, the comparison, and the line to go with it. Okay, this one is, I believe this one is, sorry, the Zoom controls are in the way. Hang on one second. Hide, there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Let me go back one. So this is looking at employee expenses. Again, we have a big number. We have the value is the bar, the target is the line, and then the comparison versus that. Very, very simple things to understand, but your eyes drawn to these three big numbers at the top. And then as you go down, things become more supporting details. This one kind of emphasizes for me the filtering on the left-hand side. So it kind of invites me to customize the view when I first get into it. So if the filter is on the right-hand side, they'd probably be seen as less important. Okay, and this one's by Ellen Blackburn. So she's a colleague of mine, went through the data school. Another great example. But going back to the beginning, for a dashboard to do its job, it must communicate clearly and effectively. But you can't get good at this stuff without practicing. And there's a couple of resources that will help you there. There's some community projects that I think, of course, I'm going to promote Makeover Monday because I think that's the best one. A little selfish there, but Makeover Monday is a bit different. It's not necessarily about building dashboards, but it's more about learning how to build effective charts and effective communication. Real world fake data is a super interesting project because you actually are building dashboards with that. So you get some kind of, there's a topic, I believe there's a data set posted with it as well. And then everybody kind of builds a really nice looking dashboard. Well, these are then templates you can use when you go back to your job. And then there's Back to Viz Basics. So in Back to Viz Basics, Eric Balash posts a topic for the week. So it might be using color effectively. It could be scatter plots, but very simple topics that help you learn the basics of different chart types and different ways of communicating with data. And I've been using Tableau for over 15 years, and I still do that project because I think it's still important to practice the basics. And that's it. Does anybody have any questions?
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Andy. That was great. I can see there are 1 or 2 questions in chat. So Ida was asking, in the variance good, bad example, isn't it bad practice to use a line since it looks like something has increased a lot due to the long line from a low number to a barely positive number? Bar charts are, okay, go for it.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find the example. Sorry, I know this is probably getting dizzy going through it. I think this one. Okay, let me look at the question again. So
just there in the chat.
Yeah, the chat's not popping up for me. Give me 1 second. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so okay, in the variance good bad example, isn't it bad practice to use a line since it looks like something has increased a lot due to the line long from a low number? I guess you probably mean down here, right? Has something increased a lot? Yeah, it does look like that. I probably would actually I might be tempted to do this as maybe a bar chart instead, because then you're saying, okay, at week 8, I was down 25%, but then come week 11, I was up whatever. So I can see what you mean about the line chart. I don't know if it's necessarily bad practice, but I can understand how there might be better ways to communicate it. I don't know if that answers your question or not, Ida. Hopefully it does.
Yeah,
okay, great.
Thanks. Great. Thank you, Andy. And then just, I think most of the other questions are housekeeping. Alan was asking when Enron scandal happened. I did a quick Google, I believe.
2001,
2001,
I believe, yeah.
Great.
And I posted a movie. Okay, I didn't know there was a movie about that.
Yeah, I thought there was a book, all right, but I didn't realize it was a movie. So that's an interesting one for tonight. And then this will be going up on Tableau's YouTube channel for anyone who wants to watch it again, or if you want to send it to your colleagues. I think other than that, we have covered all the questions. If anyone does have anything else, pop it in quickly. Don't think I see anything coming in.
Hi, this is David. Can you hear me at all?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't have a hey Andy, hey Avinash, hey. I don't have a chat. I couldn't ask any questions, but I did want to say thank you both for the time and the insightful stuff. As always, we learned so much from you, Andy, and Avinash. Thanks so much for that. Just wondering then, a question for Avinash really about the Ask Data stuff. So how soon do you think we're going to be out of the job due to this new technology?
Yeah, so that's like a big question. So, but like we do see a couple of customers who are really interested with the Ask Data and self-service capabilities. Also, we are exploring different tools like ThoughtSpot as well with the Snowflake environment. So, like it's very intuitive and of course, it may not wipe out the jobs, but definitely it's something quicker than what we do on day-to-day basis for the customers to see the real insights in a short amount of time.
You still need people, David, though, to interpret those results, right? The computer's just spitting something back to you. It doesn't know whether that's good or bad. It's just spitting a number back that somebody then has to evaluate. So.
Right. Okay. So we're safe for a little while yet. Right.
Yeah, Eva posted in the chat, as long as companies are still using Excel, we're probably all safe.
Yeah, that's true. You thank
More
you.
reassurance for us.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And
Thanks so much, everyone. Avinash and Andy, it was a pleasure. It was great to have you. So I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to close up now. And thanks for everyone for attending.
yeah, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Katie,
Bye.
for the
Have a good day.
opportunity.
Bye.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you. Bye, everyone.